It's the early 1980s. Gary Gygax stands before a packed U-Haul in Wisconsin, headed for the bright lights of Hollywood. He pulls his hair back into a ponytail and zips up his black leather jacket. It was over 40 years ago now that Gygax moved out to California with an aching in his heart and worked for years on getting D&D onto screens. His movie version never materialized, but a cartoon ran for 3-ish seasons and performed well. It brought D&D to a whole new national audience of kids. But with the expensive house, cars, nose candy, and supermodels, California was a wild time for Gygax. But this video isn't going to dive into the excesses of Gary's Hollywood phase. No, this example is meant to set the stage for how much TSR, and later Wizards of the Coast, have been fixated on television for half a century. The cartoon debuted on CBS Saturday Morning in 1983. It did well and aired for 2 full seasons before being cancelled mid-production on season 3. I watched it in reruns as a kid, and it really did make me want to play in fantasy worlds, which soon led to me begging my older brother to run D&D for me. Now fast forward 4 decades. The year is 2023. Joe Biden is in the White House. Lizzo gets canceled. Remember that? Hasbro and WotC are still reeling from the severe tarnishing of their legacy with the OGL scandal, the D&D movie not performing as well as it should have, and the Pinkerton scandal. WotC just can't stop sticking their foot in their mouth, and it's been a rough summer for all involved. But then, in November, a beacon of hope arrives. No, not that one. Hasbro steps out of the darkness to announce that there is a brand new television channel coming dedicated to Dungeons & Dragons. And collectively, we were all like, really? Okay, I guess. According to a post on The Verge, the channel would launch on Freevee and Plex, with other expanded fast viewing options promised to come. And as far as I know, a year later, and it's still only on those 2 services. I'll talk about the services in a minute. Before that, let me explain FAST. It stands for Free Ad-Supported Streaming Television and is the digital equivalent of how your grandparents used to watch TV. Set up the rabbit ears, tune in, and they feed you a scheduled stream of content and ads, all for free. Anyway, the launch was met with blasé enthusiasm, as evidenced by this telling comment below that Verge announcement. So we were all perplexed why this was happening. I grew up watching television, but it's plain to me that it's not the technology of the future. This is just my anecdotal assumption, but I believe that your average teenage or 20-something D&D player is more likely to watch YouTube than legacy television. So why spend all this money and effort to get a bunch of shows delivered to home TV screens where the intended audience is not? It's a weird flex, right? Before we go further, could I get a like and subscribe below? It only takes a second and it helps us both out. Make sure to click all next to notifications. Also click the join button to get exclusive perks when you join my channel. Now let's talk about those service options. Amazon's Freevee and Plex. When the channel launched, I first found it on Freevee, and let me tell you, finding anything on Freevee is not easy. Searching was unhelpful, because search wants to lead you to programs, not channels, so I had to find the D&D channel by scrolling through the What's Hot section of Freevee, and each day, the D&D channel sank further and further down the hot list, so I had to scroll more and more. Not a good sign. There was no way for me to pin the channel or locate it more easily. I eventually started just leaving the channel on, but muting the TV when I was doing other stuff. Later on, I did try using Plex instead to watch it and found the experience there easier to navigate. I could actually search for the channel and bring up a content schedule, but where are all the other streaming options we were promised? If you make your content hard to find, hidden beneath a bunch of other menus, people are not going to work to locate it. Humans are basically lazy. Ask us to expend effort for something we want, and we'll usually first ask you if there's an easier, softer way. There's a good reason why Amazon spends millions on research to figure out how to lower the number of total clicks during the sales process. This is my first major quandary when investigating the D&D channel. Why such a half-hearted effort? Why spend all this time and money to ink deals for this FAST channel, spend money developing new content, and then not go through with the extra effort of thoroughly promoting and making it easy to find? At this point, I'm starting to wonder if this TV channel project is some kind of tax shelter thing or some other financial offloading that is beyond my simplistic accounting understanding. Now let's talk about the content. When I first found the channel, I spent a couple weeks sampling it. I consumed probably 2 to 3 hours of content a day during that time, at various times throughout the day. Like I said before, I wasn't glued to the TV screen, I was in and out and doing other tasks. But I watched enough at staggered times in the day to get a reliable cross-section. The bulk of the content featured is episodes of the 1983 D&D cartoon, all 27 episodes played back-to-back for hours at a time. During the morning and daytime, this is all they show. It's the same 7 days a week. I wasn't able to gather exact data, but it seems they schedule about 15 episodes per day over and over, and each episode begins with a warning about problematic language and cultural appropriation. And yes, this show has all that. Plenty of casual racism and misogyny that was common in the 1980s that very much stands out now when viewed through a modern lens. And it really makes me wonder why they are fronting a TV channel with a show so outdated that it requires content warnings. Like, does this sound like a good idea to attract young people? Statistically, a majority of D&D's players were not even born yet when this cartoon aired, so why should they care about it? In the evenings, they switched to a primetime content model. They launched 3 new shows, including Faster, Purple Worm, Kill Kill. It's level 1 PCs going up against legendary monsters with predictable comedic results. Also, Encounter Party, a standard Faerun actual play, and Heroes Feast, a cooking show making recipes from the D&D cookbook that came out a couple years ago. They mix in these new shows with some classic actual play content like High Rollers and Rivals of Waterdeep. But the problem with shows like Rivals of Waterdeep is that it's virtually impossible to easily follow the story. You can't queue up episode 1 first since it's a fixed scheduled TV channel, so you have to just watch whatever episode is on right now when you tune in, and I struggle to follow the characters and story and inside jokes when trying to play catch-up starting from episode 35 of the campaign. These new shows, though, are not bad at all. Faster, Purple Worm, Kill Kill is fun, and they have legit B-list celebrities like Patton Oswalt and Seth Green appear on the show. I've sampled all the new content, and it's decent stuff with high production values. So this only increases my bafflement because on the one hand, you have quality new content, on the other hand, you have this high bar to entry by hiding it on obscure streaming services and doing very little promo for it. Like, why? And I can only come to 2 conclusions. Like I mentioned before, this may be some kind of tax thing, because I know Hasbro sold their entertainment division E1 to Lionsgate in 2023. Prior to that, E1 probably had plans to make lots more content for the F.A.S.T channel, but the sale cut that short. Or they had to get the content slate finished quickly before the sale finalized, and that's why the streaming plans weren't fully formed. Some details of the E1 sale weren't public, so I had to make educated guesses there. But there's definitely one thing that hasn't happened since the D&D F.A.S.T channel launched: new content. It's still on those same 2 streaming services, and I believe it still has the exact same shows it launched with a year ago. Whatever Phase 2 plans they had for it have clearly been shelved. But if you go find the channel right now, it's still on, still chugging, and that leads me to my second big why. Because the ultimate question here is, why did they do this at all? Why didn't they release this programming on the D&D YouTube channel? They could throw the cartoons out there on D&D YouTube and probably rake in decent cash from the ads. They are still putting out actual plays and other videos on the main YouTube channel, so they clearly value it more. And they haven't put out any special announcements or exclusive content on the F.A.S.T channel or anything like that. Like this D&D Direct from a few months ago. Why not launch it on the F.A.S.T channel live first, then put it out on YouTube the next day if you're trying to promote the F.A.S.T channel? But they've done nothing to prop up the channel since launch. The F.A.S.T channel is a forgotten stepchild. And here is my theory. Go back a couple years before the OGL crisis, before the E1 sale. Hasbro was riding high. 5e sales are strong. Baldur's Gate 3 is looking promising in early access, and there's a D&D movie in production that is sure to be a crowd pleaser. So they get cocky and want to bring D&D to TV screens again, just as they had done in the 1980s. They want the nostalgia of families gathered around the living room screen with their TV trays, watching Matthew Lillard and Carrie Payton playing make-believe on Saturday nights. So they enter into some kind of financial agreement with Freevee and Plex to launch the channel. They start making content. Then, a few months before launch, their content engine E1 is sold. Now they have agreements to launch the channel, but no easy way of getting subsequent new content to supplement the launch materials. Ruh-oh, Shaggy! But now they have TV contracts, so they have to go through with it. They launch with what they have, and they don't bother to put significant marketing dollars into it because they're already in the red on this whole operation. They don't have the resources or track record to negotiate with other streaming services beyond Plex and Freevee, and so they just keep to the path, hoping to recoup some of the production budgets of their big new shows. Again, this is all just my theory. And my final conclusion on all of this is that I believe the F.A.S.T channel is making money, at least some money, enough that they haven't pulled the plug. Now that they have the content made, it's probably relatively cheap to just maintain the channel and hope that by playing a numbers game, they'll make some of that budget back with the TV ad revenue. But no new investment, no new promotion, just the same content out there churning and churning, hoping to catch a few people who will want the D&D cartoon on in the background while they wash dishes, fold laundry, or scroll TikTok. I think these TV contracts with Freevee and Plex will expire, and it will happen very quietly. Hasbro will kill the TV channel and all that content will get dumped onto YouTube. Unceremoniously, with no warning, it will end with as little fanfare as it began, or maybe not. I'm no Nostradamus. Nostrajimus? Until next time, I'm GM Jim, and this has been another dive into D&D history. Now go out there, have some fun at your table.